Good evening, friends. We have Subodh, our newest board member, to welcome us all today. And following that, we will introduce the speaker, and then we will leave the forum to the speaker. He will address us for about 30 to 35 minutes, or say up to 40 minutes. Then we will have a brief question and answer session, and then we will end in the session. All right. Okay, over to you, Subodh.
Thanks, Sanjay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the people who joined in here from all over the world. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you, Rotarians, Rotractors, Hands, Annets, non-Rotarian members, and trustees of the Vanodaya Trust, volunteers of the Vanodaya Trust. Good to have you all here, and our most special welcome to the most important person of this evening today, our own member and the chairperson of the Vanodaya Trust. Very warm welcome to you, Ashwin. Thanks for addressing us today. And back to you, Sanjay.
Yeah. Thank you, Subodh. Right, I will just briefly tell you guys about Ashwin. Ashwin Gurushrikar is his full name. He has been a committed volunteer for wildlife conservation since 2005. Having started by volunteering for line transect surveys, and his passion to protect these wild landscapes grew along with wonderful experience in the wild. As part of an NGO called Growing Wild, Ashwin, along with a team of like-minded volunteers, started to conduct awareness campaigns across the landscapes of Nagarhole, Bandipur, BRT, and Bhadra between 2005 and 2011. By then, confident with their little collective experiences, this group decided that they would focus on a single landscape for 25 years and measure if their actions on the ground can actually make a difference. That's a wonderful decision taken by Vanodaya Ashwin. Growing Wild, now called Vanodaya, chose Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary. In 2012, this was a riverine patch of just 510 square kilometers and was later reorganized to 1,027 square kilometers, making it Karnataka's largest protected area. Ashwin currently is the chairman of Vanodaya for the past 5 years and has been in a pivotal role in helping the forest and its staff through various initiatives like awareness campaigns, creating informant network, motivating local village youth to take up the mantle of conservation, arranging training programs, and taking much legal recourse to save the forest. Professionally, Ashwin is the MD, Managing Director of a real estate firm in Bangalore in 2010 and deals since 2010 and deals mainly with the joint ventures and land transactions. Ashwin is married to Chandni Gurushrikar, who is also a volunteer for wildlife conservation, and they are blessed with a boy named Skanda. Passion for wildlife conservation is the main driving force behind most of Ashwin's actions and decisions. Friends, that is Ashwin for you. Yes, Ashwin, please take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. I think you have summarized most of my experiences and wildlife issues that I wanted to talk of. So I'll just deliberate on that. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Very good evening and warm welcome to all the wonderful members of this group which I'm proudly a part of. Every time a discussion or a presentation starts, people would give their thoughts and share their experiences and end with the question and answer session being done. However, I would like to start my presentation with a question to all of you, and except Sanjay and Geetanjali, anybody else can answer this question. If all of you have looked at the Indian map, can you please give me a show of hands, please? All of you who have looked at the Indian map, a show of hands. Wonderful. I can see that everyone is giving a show of hands. If you think that the Indian continent, in terms of numbers, would be given a number of, as 100, what would be the percentage of protected areas in India, and what would be the percentage that we humans have started to use? Human landscapes and forests. What do you think are the two percentages that you can throw me a number at? Can we just ask somebody randomly? Maybe Monica, can you just give me a number? You're muted. Still muted. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
Okay, the question is, if you look at the Indian map, what percentage are forests and what percentage have humans occupied?
Okay, so it's going to be a wild guess.
Sorry, I can't hear you actually. You're not loud enough.
It's just, from my end, it's just going to be a guess. Can you hear me?
No, actually, it's not that clear. Any number is fine, Monica. Okay. I think I'll move on because of the time constraint. Can we ask Rajiv, the birthday boy, to throw a number, please?
Right question to the wrong person, I would say. I'm sorry, Ashwin.
Just give a number. What percentage are forests and what percentage are humans? Simple.
Percentage of forest maybe around 10%.
10%, and the rest 90% are occupied by humans, right?
That's what I feel, yeah.
Okay, fine. We do have nice responses in the chat from 20 to 80 and then 16, 17. Okay, let me all bring you to the reality. Always doing is one thing, but knowing something and doing something about it is a totally different thing. India has 4.89% reserved as forests, and the rest is used for human occupation. We have less than 5% of our landscape as forests, and 95% is being used by humans. When we go to a village and tell them that if you have a farm in which there are only 5 coconut trees, and if you are given a choice to cut these 5 coconut trees, after which India would not have any more coconut trees, what will you do? Will you save them or will you destroy them? The immediate answer from anybody and everybody is, we will do whatever it takes to save these 5 coconut trees, because otherwise our future generations are left without even the faintest idea of what a coconut tree is. That's exactly what a good wildlife volunteer or somebody working for wildlife will do. We will protect these 5% at any cost, because the 5% forests that we have are home to 600 rivers that originate. And if we don't give these 5% safely to the next generation, you can be rest assured that our children and grandchildren will be fighting with each other just for water. And how do I get these numbers? We do not try and speculate about anything. Everything is a fact. All of you can Google National Wildlife Action Plan. It is a government document released by the Ministry of Forest and Environment in collaboration with the World Wildlife Institute of India. And it is done once in 14 years. So there is a document which has been released 2017 to 2031. So that's a 14-year document in which you will realize that 4.89% is what 733 protected areas in India only constitute. As per the constitution, it is supposed to be 33%. Anyway, to give you an insight about the situation that we are in. As Sanjay aptly mentioned, in 2005, I started conservation, and in 2006, I did my first line transect survey. It was an estimation of animal population, the prey density per square kilometer of the forest in protected areas. We used to walk between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the evening to estimate the animal density, the sighting distance, and the angle of measurement of the animals that we sighted who were disturbed by our presence were noted down, and about 6 times these lines were walked in the forest. What happened when we walked? Everything happened. We were bitten by leeches. We had ticks all over our body, chased by elephants, encountered leopards, walked into sleeping gores, crossed over pythons, and bears coming out of nowhere. And we were dropped at 5 o'clock in the morning when every shadow looked like an elephant that came close to us. And it was always better to mistake a rock for an elephant than elephant for a rock, for various reasons. So these things kept happening. And when we actually came out of the forest, we realized because of our walking experiences, we were thrilled to understand that something so beautiful and so pure existed in India. There was no caste, no creed, no religion, or no greed. The forest and wildlife were God's own breed. So what we did was, when we came out, I realized that this is something that I would devote my life into protecting, because there was so much purity in it that our children had to experience this. We grew up on government sambars, poor conditions of staying and walking kilometers, every day, and eating very meager food. And by the time we used to come out of these sojourns in the forest, we were at least down by 3 to 4 kgs every season. And I was very lucky enough to do this for 10 years. So this is what. And of course, on a lighter note, I have seen the maximum number of demises of grandparents during line transit surveys only. For volunteers, it was always the safest activity that you could do. The road in front of your house, the main road, could probably be more dangerous than inside the core area of Nagarhole or Bandipur. However, volunteers who thought line transit survey would be to go in a jeep, take some photographs and come back. And when they actually walked the first line early in the morning with elephants brushing right next to them, they used to come back to the camps and immediately tell the camp in charge that my grandfather died, who would have died at least 5 years ago. So that's how we have seen maximum number of demises of grandparents. This is just a joke on the lighter note. And just to give you an insight of what happened in the line transit surveys, in 2006, if anyone can imagine, while walking on foot, what was the number of elephants that I personally counted? I wouldn't go and ask this question to anyone, because only if you have walked will you be able to answer this question. I had counted 435, and there was a colleague of mine who's a doctor right now who had counted 600. So Kabini used to be the largest, and probably still is, the largest Asian congregation, the largest congregation of Asian elephants in a particular region. After that, when I went back in 2014 to Kaveri, because by then various activities had taken me to various forests, I realized there were only about 100 elephants. So what was the difference? The artificial intervention that we do, through the forest department or this thing, to make sure the elephant has water, the elephant has fodder, and the cutting off of the corridors using railway barricades and trenches, had stopped this fantastic migration of elephants from both Tamil Nadu and Malay Madeshwara hills right up to Kabini. These guys are the architects. We have one Subodh, but the forest has 8,000 of them, because that is the kind of interaction that the forest needs. They down old trees, giving way to the newer ones to come up, and they restructure the whole forest. And everywhere an elephant walks becomes the path for other animals to follow. This is just giving you an insight. What is it that Vanodia does? So first I will answer, before we do anything in life, let it be wildlife conservation or a business strategy, we have to ask ourselves the question, why? Why are we doing wildlife conservation? Simply because it is the right thing to do, and passing on this legacy to our future generation is the only true asset that we can really pass on to the next generation. What do we do? As Sanjay aptly mentioned, in 2005, 6, 7, 8, Bandipur, Bhadra, Nagarhole, BRT, we did various kind of activities for some other NGOs on creating awareness, trying to support the department, maybe giving a few donation kits, all those basic things. But with the collective experiences, we really decided that we were serious about this cause, and we will focus on one single forest, for the next 25 years. Now it has, of course, modified into a lifelong journey. And then we thought we will focus on a forest where nobody is working, everybody says it's dilapidated, and we chose Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary. At that time, it was only a 512 square kilometer riparian patch right along the river, which was protected. And most of the people actually told us that please don't work in this landscape. There's nothing that is going to ever be achieved by working there. and you're also pouring a lot of water on a dead tree, it's not going to sprout. But that is exactly what we wanted, because every other park already had so many names floating around. So we wanted to start somewhere totally fresh. We chose Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary. And what happened? We entered in 2012, and as Providence or destiny would have it, to challenge us to make our resolve even more harder, it got reorganized by adding another 517 square kilometers. So it became 1027 square kilometers, Karnataka's largest protected area, spanning across 3 districts of Ramnagara, Mandya, and Chamarajanagar. So from the start of our forest to the end, it's almost 250 kilometers. And it has Tamil Nadu borders on both the sides. So we entered an extremely complex ecosystem where everybody used to have a field day almost every other day by going into the forest, cutting it, and do hunting. There were hardly any sorts of strict regulations within, and suddenly overnight it was declared a wildlife sanctuary. So this experience, we thank God that they gave us the resolve to face this experience. We had a wonderful time because we got to interact with people who are still adjusting to this transition. What did we experience? We experienced the most incredible landscape. How? People are tough, the weather is tough, the terrain is tough. It is not like a typical Western Ghat forest or Kabini where you see mist going around all the time. No, it's not like that. It's dusty, it has boulders, it has a very tough terrain. The people are equally tough, and we had to deal with some of the strongest political names in Karnataka today. And what happened? And it also had a very long history of poaching and hunting. So just to let you know, guys, that in reality, in India, there is no word called as poaching. The law does not recognize it. If you look at the Wildlife Protection Act, and if somebody asks you what is the difference between poaching and hunting, you should actually say it is hunting, because we don't use the word poach in any legal document. There were massive tree cuttings, there were encroachments, there were religious fairs where at every weekend, we used to see 10,000 people congregate on the banks of Kaveri and have a massive party. And in terms of man-element conflict, we were just third in the state. We still are third in the state. If you look at Alur, Hassan, and Sakleshpur, and if you look at Coorg and Madikeri, third comes the Ramnagara division. We have elephants dying regularly because of electrocution, snaring, or poisoning, and some humans getting killed regularly too. This is the level of conflict, and we are facing it on a daily basis. But in this unique experience of facing so many hardships, we saw a forest which was more beautiful than anything we had ever seen. Undulating mountains for kilometers as long as your eye can see. And the most important aspect of our forest is the Kaveri River, which feeds all of Bangalore, which most of us are drinking out of every day. For 101 kilometers, for 101 kilometers, sorry, 105 kilometers, this river has been protected by the forest. And you will see Kaveri in its most glorious form only when all of you decide to come with us and give a visit to the forest. So these type of dry terrain, it was a degraded dry deciduous terrain. Now the forest has been upgraded to a dry deciduous forest because of an increase in the rainfall. It could be because of global warming or because the forest is regenerating well. So the status has been moved. And this forest is something that Monodaya started to focus on simply because we realized that we know our limitations. We chose our battle very wisely. We cannot save the world, or we cannot save Karnataka, or we cannot even go and do conservation in North Karnataka. But we will for sure give a collective effort to protect one forest in our lifetime, and that is Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary. And somehow, just like most of us here, Kaveri survived against all odds, and not only did she survive, but she thrived. Today, the river runs protected for 105 kilometers. There are 285 species of birds that were documented in just a 2-day exercise out of the 1,300 that are present in India. We have a host of reptiles, and very recently we also found the Sri Lankan flying snake, which was the second record in Karnataka. We have a host of mammals. I will show you that in the presentation later on. Among which the badger, the honey badger, or the rattle, and the grizzled giant squirrel are endemic, found probably in Kaveri. Some parts of Bannerghatta and BRT also have recordings, but the density is in our forest, especially the rattle. The GGS, or the grizzled giant squirrel, is found only in Kaveri, and that is the northernmost tip of this squirrel. So if the dam comes and these squirrels go, then only below Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary towards Sri Lanka will you find these squirrels anymore. Otherwise, the last remaining great population is gone. We have a host of mammals, starting from the rusty spotted cat to the tiger. We have all those. We have great canids like wolves, doles, jackals, and even the striped hyena. And the amphibian, we have recorded the balloon frog, which was last seen in the 1980s by Chief Naturalist Karthikeyan. And of course, we know that they are thriving in the forest, but it's not that we have seen them. And of course, a host of insects, starting from sun spiders to tarantulas to centipedes, you name them, all kinds of tiger beetles, pond insects, everything we have. And even in the summer, all of you, I would recommend to visit Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary, because summer is the most beautiful time, where you will see Chloroxylon swietenia or Uruglumara, or the East Indian satinwood tree, and Butea monosperma, flame of the forest, or Mutuga in full flame, in full bloom rather. This is what sustains most of the ungulates during the summer season. They're in full bloom, and it looks immensely beautiful to see that. And of course, Vanodaya has been interacting with the forest department and the stakeholders. And I will come to the presentation right now. I will just share. One second.
Ashwin, you are muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Chandni will send the file to you, Sanjay. Can you please share it? Because the Mac is not allowing me to do so.
So meanwhile, any questions till now, please feel free to ask.
Yes, Subodh, please go ahead.
Hi, Ashwin again. What are the number of volunteers that you guys currently have under Vanogya?
Yeah, one second. Subodh, we actually are about 80 to 90 people strong right now. What happened was we realized the extent of Kaveri was very large, where we could really not do it with a few volunteers. So we started increasing our volunteer base both in Bangalore and in the villages around Kaveri. So we have about 40 rural volunteers working for us and about 50 volunteers from Bangalore working for us, out of which at any given point in time, 20 to 25 are active in the forest. So that's how the numbers start.
And how do we enroll for any specific activities or something that you guys run whenever?
Yeah. I mean, year round, we have many activities. I'll come to that in the end.
Okay.
And I will also tell you how you can all enroll and be a part of it. It will be a very gratifying journey.
Sure.
Sanjay, did you get it?
Not yet. I'm waiting.
All right. Sorry for this.
It's shared by WhatsApp, is it?
Yeah.
Do you want us to share the video of the?
Yeah, it's come soon. Sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Ashwin, Jankiram here. I have a question.
Good evening, sir.
So, see, I mean, we hear a lot about environment being destructed and a lot of deforestation and other things.
Yeah.
Is there some silver lining somewhere that, okay, something good is happening and at least the children of the future will have a decent environment for them?
Sir, I'm so happy to hear this question. You have hit the nail on the head. As conservationists, we need to be eternal optimists. I am telling you that the conservation scenario in India is actually brilliant. Because not only are our protected areas doing well, but India is moving towards the city-centric lifestyle, just like China and US, where 60% of the population will be living in cities in the next 10 years. It is creating more and more space for wildlife. And once you go towards any village and see, after 7 o'clock, it all belongs to the wild only. So I have a personal experience that our future generation will still get to see a good number of tigers and elephants. The only thing is how we pass on the baton, from one generation to another, and hope that the next generation also will be as committed as some of us here in saving these wild landscapes will be the key. But I am very optimistic and I'm very hopeful that India is going to have a good future for our wild denizens.
Okay, that's great to hear. So we need to have hundreds of Ashwins and others.
All of us, sir. All of us have a small role to play.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can we have
just a minute, Ashwin? Rashmi will share. You want the first one to be shared?
Yeah.
Or both are same, right?
Yeah.
Both are
Slightly different because we have photographs. So I'll just run through it very quickly.
So the PDF isn't opening, but I can share the PPT, which also had some issue, but I will share what is.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. This works. You can just run through one and then we can.
Rashmi, maybe we can do a slideshow.
Yeah.
A full screen, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
One slide before, please. Yeah. I can also shift the slides if I want.
No, I don't think that's possible.
All right. All right. I'll just say next and you can just press on.
Sure.
So this is how our beautiful sanctuary looks like. And, it is a wonderful maze of dry deciduous forests, woodland savannas, grasslands, shola patches. And, it's like a Montana in the US where you would see hills on both the sides and a stream running right in between, river running right in between. So this is exactly how Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary would look like. And the river runs for 105 kilometers through this landscape. Next, please. So what you're looking at is the map of Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary. It is a very complex forest because it represents three fingers, which you can see here, like the three fingers. And whenever you have to reach the forest, you have to go through a maze of villages. So there is extremely high anthropogenic pressures, human pressures on the forest. And, not only are entire Bangaloreans depending on the Kaveri water, which is a lot of pressure on any river for that matter, let alone it supplying Bangalore. But it also has this immense pressure from villagers who rear cattle. Every single village is called as Doddis or cattle heads, Ramegaudam Doddi, Boregaudam Doddi, which meant that there were lakhs of heads of cattle within the forest. Luckily, the first thing that conservationists got to do was remove these cattle pens which were deep within the forest. We had 2,000 cattle sheds, 500 cattle sheds having 2,000 heads of cattle in it, on an average. So we had a lack of cattle going into the forest and grazing every day. This was the first thing that was done, removed in 2012, and that really led to the recovery. Yes, next one, please. Also, it is very important for us to understand that Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary and the BRT are the two connecting forests between the two great ghats of India. One is a biodiversity hotspot and another one is least recognized, which I feel is the better one actually, the Western Ghats and the Eastern Ghats. and the BRT, Banerghatta and Kaveri form the major link or the confluence between the two great Ghats. If you look at the Indian map, on the left-hand side, you will find the Western Ghats, on the right-hand side, the Eastern Ghat. Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary, as I told you, are spread across the districts of Ramnagara, Mandya, Chamaranagar, and in the taluks of Kanakpura and this thing. It's totally about 1,027 square kilometers, and the Kaveri flows for 105 kilometers through the sanctuary. 7 ranges, it used to be 5 before, but the management became very tough, so it was split into smaller ranges of Sangama, Mugguru, Haluguru, Kotanur, Hanur, Kaudalli, and Gopinatham. So we have able officers protecting these forests. We have 2 subdivisions, so we have 2 ACFs and a DCF who is in charge of the sole protection of this forest. Next, please. So yeah, you can actually skip this because I'll cover it in the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So it is the largest protected area in Karnataka, and the major rainwater catchment area, which actually goes into Tamil Nadu. We have around 50 to 53 rivulets, rivers, and water sources, helping the Kaveri move closer to Tamil Nadu through the forest. And it is this forest which protects the river. Okay, it might be farmers from Tamil Nadu or farmers from Karnataka, it does not matter. They're all farmers to us. And close to about 2.5 crore farmers are depending on this water for irrigating their lands. The Kaveri Sanctuary offers the safe haven for, okay, I'll tell you in a different way. This is the only forest which has 2 types of tigers. One that goes on the land, which is the Royal Bengal tiger, and one that is inside the river, which is called as the humpback mahashir fish. It is called the tiger of Kaveri and the pride of Karnataka. Fishes close to 50 to 60 kilos have been recorded, 8 to 10 feet long. And they're called tigers because when angling used to be done at Kaveri, the struggle that they gave was equivalent to a tiger. A single man would be pulled into the river if not for the help of gillies who used to help them bring in this fish, take a photograph, and put it back into the river. Also, the first ever record of a honey badger, you can see on the right. This animal is a deep nocturnal species, active mainly at night. And this honey badger was first ever recorded in Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary. It is a potential tiger reserve. People say that Bandipur, Nagarhole have all reached their carrying capacity, but through the Satyamangalam patch, through the BRT patch, they can enter Male Madeshwara and finally find a safe haven of 1,000 square kilometers within our forest. It has various fungi, insects, arachnids, fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. Next one, please. Can we go back 2 slides so that at least I can explain those photographs? Yeah. So as you can see, this is the grizzled giant squirrel, the humpbacked mahashir, as you can see on the right-hand bottom side, the rattle, and of course the tigers. In a forest where there were hardly any tigers, today in this census, we expect at least 7 to 8 mature adults to be recorded, because those are the signs that we've been getting from the ground staff. Okay, next, please. Next.
There's an issue with the file, so I'm not sure.
Chandni is sending another original file. Maybe that would be good. We also have the slender loris and yeah, okay. The large carnivores are, of course, all these, the golden jackal, which is found in good abundance. We have the doles, we have the leopard, the sloth bear, the tiger, and the striped hyena. Next, please.
Just got the new file. Should I open that one?
Yeah, you can just move on to the next one. That's okay. One of the major threats to wildlife conservation is technology. Half of us will save tiger on technology or Facebook, and the other half it won't open up whenever you want to speak. So we've had this problem before too. Just joking. Yeah, we can move on to a few slides. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, let's go back to herbivores. One step back, please. Yeah, thank you. So the first animal that you see on the left is the four-horned antelope, or the kondukuri we call it. We have the barking deer. We have the sambar, world's largest deer species. We have the spotted deer in abundance. Before, whenever we used to roam Kaveri for 3 to 4 days, we used to see 1 or 2 spotted deer. Today, we have them coming out of the forest. So that is a great indication that the prey species are recovering. We have a sizable population of Indian wild pig, the porcupine, the langurs, the black-naped hare. Of course, the beautiful and iconic species of Kaveri remains the elephant. And very recently, the indicator species, when a forest is least disturbed, we have the gores coming back. So we have gores in good numbers coming back. Hopefully, we are thinking that tigers too will follow. Next one, please. Among the small carnivores, we have the small Indian civet, the common palm civet, the Indian pangolin, the Reddy's mongoose, the striped neck mongoose, slender loris, and of course the most iconic species and the logo of Anodea, because this animal represents the confluence of land and forest, which we are going to focus now very extensively, is the smooth-coated river otter. Next one, please. Of course, I went through this. Next. The reptiles. We have, starting from Russell's viper to the Indian python, the mugger crocodile is the iconic species, just like the mahashir of the river. We have the monitor lizard and birds. We have iconic lesser fishing eagle, which is seen in large numbers in Kaveri, the peacock, of course, and the state bird of Karnataka, the blue jay or the Indian roller. Next, please. Yeah. So what is the importance of protecting Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary? Major rainwater catchment area, okay, acts like a giant sponge and recharges this forest, which does not have a pump switch or electricity to pump in for kilometers without anybody's help. And you know, this is the forest which keeps pumping this across. It prevents soil erosion and filling up our dam. It, of course, is the lung space of the earth. You know, all of us know the importance of oxygen only during Corona. But when Corona is not there, we have to realize that these are the ones that are protecting us from such viruses. Okay, they are the carbon sink, important source of medicinal plants. We still don't know if there is a cure for COVID or if there is a cure for AIDS or cancer within the Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary or forests such like this. If it is not protected, we are going to be losing that opportunity to help mankind itself. Without these forests, all of us are going to go down. And home to rare and endangered species with just 4% of the geographical land of India is actually protecting the 96%, even if you look at now. Yes, next one, please. So if you can look at this, we improvised our uniforms during crowd control programs by making sure that, you know, we look like strict personnel who are helping the department enforce a very strong law into the forest. So for example, in 2012, there was a crowd control fair called the Chikkalur Jatre, which actually had lakhs of people going to the forest. We protected it straight for about 9 years. And in 2021, and starting from 2019, the decline started. People started using the main roads to reach the temple rather than travel through the forest. And for the past 3 years, subsequently, we have had about a maximum of 30 to 50 people who have managed to escape our views and cross through the forest. Otherwise, the whole population has realized that going through the forest is not a viable option anymore, and they're using main roads. And we've been working with the stakeholders, the department, the politicians. These are all the MLAs of Kollegala and you know, Chamraj Nagar, whom we are interacting with. And school children have been a major program, a part of our program. And this is how we have engaged all the stakeholders in that particular landscape to make sure that we protect the forest. The most important aspect are some of the locals that you can see in the photograph. They are all village volunteers. Every Friday, we used to go to villages and conduct documentary awareness program on saving wildlife called Truth About Tigers. And when the villagers all dispersed, 2 days later on, we actually got a call from people saying that they were interested in doing something because we went to their village and told them about the forest. When they realized that it was only 4%, we found one good volunteer per village. And these pound per pound have become our mahashirs and tigers and are really doing great work in helping us protect Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary. What all we do? Yeah, we of course have given a religious tinge. Next one, please. Okay, because Male Madeshwara or this Ishvara who rides a tiger is an iconic symbol across our forest. And we use both these icons, the tiger and Malay Madheshwara, to help protect our forest and make sure that it stays protected. What other things does one of the do is stakeholder management. We do monthly patrols. We have local volunteers who are in charge of, you can remove the PPT please, I'll just stop. Okay, monthly patrols. We have eco club programs, which are highly curated and excellent content programs in a few schools that we have adopted. Right now, it's going on in 2 schools for the past 2 years, and we plan to take it to more than 200 schools in the coming next 10 or 15 years. The monthly patrol, people, volunteers are asked to patrol on the borders to ensure that the forest remains safe and no illegal activity escapes are right. And we have crowd control programs. We have fire prevention and awareness programs. Awareness is done in the schools. Every year we cover 212 schools without fail during the months of December and January to make sure that it stays protected and the school children are aware of all the issues that fire can cause. And from January to May, we send in our jeeps and volunteers to help the department douse the fire. This is what we do. We have something called as a tolerance program, where we have adopted 2 villages, and highly qualified staff are working with villagers to reduce the conflict between elephants and humans. And whatever we succeed in the next 5 years in these 2 villages will be replicated to 133 villages across the sanctuary. We have training programs. We support the department, and today I would like to acknowledge that the forest department and its officers have done a phenomenal job of protecting the forest, because we are not trained to do enforcement, but every information that we give, they have done a fabulous job, and we are deeply grateful for their efforts in doing their job effectively and protecting the forest. And of course, we also have a few more activities like collaboration with scientific data collection activities, waterhole mapping, border, and of course, we create and maintain a very crucial information network. So with this, I can go on for days together because there are so many things we actually do, but I think we're running out of time, and I would like to end my presentation by thanking Sanjay, because Sanjay, frankly, being part of this group reiterates my commitment to the purity of volunteering. I might be leading a larger dedicated group towards a landscape, but being, a part of this group and working for your ideas and new ideas gives me a chance to revisit those initial days that I actually started out as a volunteer. So while I'm deeply grateful, I also wish to say only 2 things before I end my talk. The greatest threat to conservation is not hunting, encroachment, or the conflict between wildlife and humans. The greatest threat to conservation is thinking that somebody else is going to save it. So all of you can do something, and it is high time that you realized your limitations and made some time, even if it is an hour, even if it is 10 minutes in a month, or if it is a single day in a month. If you can get in touch with groups like ours and Sanjay, we will all tell you how best you can utilize this much time to help wildlife. And all of us will definitely make a difference, because I strongly believe in this world, nothing else beats better than the heart of a volunteer. Thank you so much for listening to me. Sanjay, over to you. We are open for questions.
Yeah, what a wonderful way to end your speak, Ashwin. Nothing beats better than a volunteer's heart. I think you said it all. Thank you so much. If anyone wants to ask question, kindly unmute yourself and you can ask the question, please.
Or
We have
probably you can raise your hands. If someone is ready, please go ahead.
Sandesh, can I share the video now?
Yeah, you can maybe share a video before, and people can be ready with their questions right after that. A small video.
Yes, we have just a 1.5 minute video. After that, meanwhile, you can all get ready with your questions. Yeah, any questions? Or I have a question for you to
Yes,
start
please.
with, Ashwin.
Yes.
Um, why the name Vanodaya?
So it has an interesting history to it. We were actually called Growing Wild before. And what happened was the department or the stakeholders across any landscape, they were never able to pronounce it. Some pronounced it as Growing Wild, some Snoring Wild. So all these things happened. And we finally realized that, we were going to get, we would not get the traction that we require from villagers. So we actually chose a name. Chandni chose this name for the group, and it's called Vana plus Udaya. Vana in Kannada means forest, and the emergence of forests as important matters for this country was Udaya. So we chose Vanodaya. Of course, now we have a lot of traction in the ground level. A lot of villagers are able to say it. Some misspell it as Navodaya, but that's still fine. We're at least 80% closer to our goal. So Vanodaya is what we chose because it's easy for a villager to recollect, and the recall value was quite high. That's why we chose this.
Yeah, Ashwin, I think you wanted to reply to Subodh's question. He was asking how to
Yeah.
enroll with Vanodaya.
Yeah. So that's an excellent question, Subodh. We need maximum volunteer support during our activities. See, one thing is, it is very easy for us to work with people who come to us rather than we reaching out to 100 people every time, because we are focusing on core issues of the forest. So if somebody is seriously interested, they need to follow us, very closely and understand how they can volunteer. We will understand each of your strengths, because for us to interact with 100 people is not possible. But if somebody comes to us, we will realize what your strengths are and utilize those skill sets for conservation purposes. For example, if we have a good photographer, then we would like him to document the flora, fauna, and the stages of forest across all seasons, to make sure that we have a photo documentary presentation that can be shown to anybody and everybody. If somebody is good with GIS, then wherever elephant dies, we would ask them to map that GIS onto a map so that we can help the policymakers take an informed decision. But in general, not all of us will ever, be able to develop great skill sets. It's okay, because even for us, volunteering itself is very happy. So when we announce that there is going to be an event, it could be a talk show like this or a field event at the forest, you should make time and try and come. We place highest priority on volunteer safety. So we will make sure that all of you are looked after very well, but the conditions naturally will be very tough. It's a very hot forest, it's a very dry forest, and it's elephant country. So you will have to trust us and come along with us, but make your field visits more. The first steps that you can take is by enriching yourself with more knowledge. We can all decide how little time we have for conservation and use that effectively. So anybody who is interested, please get in touch. We have so many things that can be done, and general activities, we will inform you. Please participate.
Sure. Thanks, Ashwin.
Thank you, sir. Vijay Mane has a question, I think.
Hi, Ashwin. Good evening. Good evening, everybody.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah. So, been part of wildlife for a long time. Done quite a lot of, tiger census and forest visits earlier, along with forest department and all that. Please add us into your active group of WhatsApp or however you communicate, so that we can try to help, support, and volunteer whenever you have any projects.
100%. All the experiences count, and no experience is too big or too small.
Yeah.
And it's a very minority community, wildlife conservationists in total, and Karnataka being number one, probably in terms of addressing social issues, be it wildlife conservation or caring for the girl child. We are still a very minority community, and we are all, after all, trying to protect one forest. But if all of us can get together, learn from our experiences, and then go back to different forests and protect it, Karnataka would definitely be, probably number one in the world when it comes to conservation initiatives.
We are with you. We are with you, Ashwin. We'll do a great deal of support to you. Please add us in the group. Thank you.
It will be a privilege. I'll do that, Vijay. Thank you.
In fact, just to say another thing, today our club went to this PFA,
Okay.
People for Animals, run by Colonel Nawaz.
Yeah.
They, rescue urban wildlife and then, rehabilitate and then send them back into the forest area. There's a wonderful experience today. We were there the whole day, in fact.
Glad you did that.
Hi, Ashwin. This is Krishnarjun.
Yes, Krishna.
And I observed that you guys have a special focus on otters and very fascinating creatures. Wanted to understand why you chose to focus more on otters and how you would like to continue with the conservation efforts of otters.
So when we decided to have a logo for Vanodaya, we came up with a lot of animals which were specific to Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary to put on a visiting card. So I personally chose the elephant, but what happened was I realized that whenever I go to a village and talk to them about man-elephant conflict and I'm representing the elephant, I would be so what
Krishna, just one moment. May I request everyone else to go on mute, please?
Yeah, I muted all. Ashwin, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah, sorry about that. So Krishna, we chose otter because it was a very non-conflict species. Nobody had any problems with the otter. Fishermen were okay with it, and the otter really did not cause any conflict. And it was only yesterday during the Mahasir festival we realized this is the only animal in the forest which uses both land and the water for its living. It forages inside the water by catching fish, but it needs the sandy beds to raise its litter. So we honestly have no projects surrounding the otter because we are not a species-based conservation group. We are a landscape-based conservation group. We protect the whole landscape, and by doing so, otters or tigers or even the insects, all of them are safe. So that's what we do. But of course, sometime in the future, we do have plans to collaborate with scientific institutes and organizations. And if some work comes up on the otter, and if you want to be a part of it or something, we would be glad to look into it at that time.
Thank you so much, Ashwin. You've seen those special sequences in wild Karnataka where otters chase away tigers. So very, very nice to see these particular families, whether it's otters or weasels or mongooses, which are not afraid to challenge honey badgers, for instance. They're not afraid to challenge something bigger than their size, and they're very inspiring that way. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you, Krishna.
Ashwin, a lot of people are asking for your contact number. Can I share it here?
Yeah, you can share to anybody. It's 9844036807, and we'll also put it up on the chat.
Yeah.
I'll repeat it once again, just in case somebody wants to store it. It's
I'm typing it, yeah.
Sorry?
I'm typing it, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Prithvi over here. And I see Ashwin smiling. Yeah. So just to let you know, I'm Ashwin's cousin. And I have been with Ashwin to many of these forests that he speaks about, right? Not probably as a volunteer, but I do join him when he goes, and he shows me so many things in the forest, and it's extremely interesting, right? And the way he describes it, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. There you go. My video is on. So the way he describes it, it is something that you have to behold. You know, I mean, you go there, you see it, you will know what it is, and it's just amazing, right? And what Ashwin and Chandni are doing for wildlife conservation is something amazing. You know, he is one of the few persons who's actually following his heart and his passion to do something in this regard. You know, and there are very few people of those, to tell you very frankly. I don't have a question. I don't have anything to say. I just have a statement to make. Just to say that how proud I am of these two, you know, Ashwin and Chandni, for what they are doing today. And if anybody is interested in volunteering and, you know, doing something for what they do, it's absolutely a beautiful platform that you can actually go into and do even a little bit. You know, it will make a lot of difference. So I just want to say thanks to Ashwin and Chandni for what they're doing. And I feel extremely proud of what they do. Thanks.
Thank you, Pratik. That was most unexpected. And just to let you know, guys, it is groups like this and groups like my cousin's group, which keep the sanity between always seeing issues in the forest and the beautiful things at life. So I'm very proud to be part of both these groups, you know, which keep the balance very well maintained. Just like the ecosystem balance, you know, our mental balance of having fun and fighting an issue. So both of these are kept at a balance because of people like you and the people in the group here. Thank you, Pratik.
Just for the information of, sorry, Gitanjali, just for the information of our audience, I would also like to say that, you know, during our Rotary ICGF, when we had put up a stall, Ashwin and Chandni volunteered to come and, you know, spend time. And let me tell you, they have spent nearly 5 hours standing there and talking to people and encouraging them to not only, join the fellowship, also let them know what wildlife conservation is all about. Thanks for that, Ashwin and Chandni.
I should thank you for that opportunity, Sanjay. Main thing is, if you see a tiger in Kerala, you don't call it a Malayali tiger. Or if you see an elephant in Tamil Nadu, we don't call it as a Tamil elephant. So wildlife is wildlife everywhere, you know, and we will do whatever it takes to. And this is something that we have to put it out to larger groups. Somebody can see what we are doing and replicate it somewhere else. The cause must remain pure, you know, because that is what drives all of us. And we're very proud to participate and contribute wherever we can. Yes, Gitanjali, you had something.
You know, in a lighter vein, Bengalis will be very happy. Wherever it goes, it is Bengal tiger.
South Indians will be even more proud because the favorite food of the tiger remains sambar.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I have a lot of anecdotes like that. When Lord Ganesha does not agree with himself, do you know what it is called? Man-elephant conflict. Yeah.
Okay. My question was, you know, like when you initially started Vanodaya and started working along with the forest department, how difficult was it to, approach, like be part of their activities? I mean, there is always that little conflict, right, between a social organization or a voluntary organization, and how has been the experience so far?
Oh, that's a very, very pertinent question, Geetanjali, and I'll be very honest about it. See, it has been a love-hate relationship because some officers who see us as a threat will not encourage, and our work only becomes more. And some officers realize the value of a great organization like Manodaya and work very closely with us. Even then, our work becomes more. When we initially started out, frankly speaking, it was more on an experimental basis because we realized that if you have to address any problem, for example, if there is a power shortage in your house which is perennial, you have to approach the KEB or the BESCOM to get it repaired. So the crux of the solution lied within the department. and we didn't have a choice. We needed to interact with them very closely and get our job done because we were not empowered to do so. So what we did is we started depending on the department, relying on them and supporting them, but also questioning them at the right time when things did not go as it should have. So what happened is, while it is a love-hate relationship, wildlife actually benefited. So even when somebody has to do conservation, please realize this: without working with the villagers surrounding the forest, without working with politicians, because not all politicians are bad, they are not aware. Some politicians have done much more good for wildlife than most of us will ever do. So we have to interact with the right kind of stakeholders if our intent is to genuinely help wildlife. So I'm thankful that initially we started working with the department. A lot of others said you don't need to really do this because they really don't do much. But no, it's not a fact. The watcher, the guard, and the DRFOs are at ground level all the time. And we are very proud to say that we have meaningful relationships with all of these people. And we have built a very strong rapport with the lower level staff of Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary. What happens is, even when a new officer comes in, he realizes that our foundation is so solid, he has no choice but to work with us. So we respect their authority, we keep our barriers. And one more thing is, as a group, we have a policy where we don't interfere in their administrative matters. So if it comes to corruption or something, we don't get into all that, as long as protection measures are not compromised. As long as hunting is not happening, fires are controlled, tree felling is not happening, crowds are controlled, enforcement is done at night, we leave it at that. Okay, because there are things which if we start getting into, it's going to be an ocean where we cannot swim. So to answer your question, yes, it was tough, it is tough, it is going to be tough, but we don't have a choice and we love it.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's a great way of working along with the government agencies.
Ashwin, if I may, the number of years that you've spent venturing into the forests and working there, would you like to share any special encounters that you had, any interesting special event that happened?
So one of the most beautiful sights that I remember is, at the end of May in maybe 2006, I was walking a line in Bandipur, and there was a steep, a steep incline, decline. And what happened was I saw this really mature matriarch female show the way of getting down that slope to its herd members. And what she did was she flattened her back legs, sat on her buttocks, and actually slid like a baby going down on a slope. And that for me remains my most iconic picture ever. And of course, another time I also had a tusker almost touch me in Melkamnahalli of Bandipur line. That is when, at the age of 38, I gave up walking lines because I realized that maybe I was pushing it too close and there are a lot more good things that I can do coming out of the forest. When we were walking the forest, this tusker was on the right hand side and we had to walk straight. So we just took its measurements, but since it was too close, we indicated our presence as we were trained. We coughed 1 or 2 times. For some strange reason, the tusker came and stood right on the line. And there was a big bush of lantana, and I was not able to realize where the tusker was, while my field assistant, who was a Jenu Kurba, he kept telling me, "Sir, bachi kondide," which means, "Sir, it's hiding, it's hiding." I said, "Nothing like that. Animals only know fear and hunger. They don't stalk you or, they don't." But I was wrong. So what happened was there was a big fallen tree, which was 4 feet in height, even when it had fallen down. So I climbed up on the tree and I just jumped over, and there was a huge opening in the lantana brush. And I just bent in only to see the elephant also bend back and see me. And for the first time, there was no alarm call. There was just a puff, a puff of air hitting the ground. And that, believe me, is a real charge. So within a split second, the tusker came on to me and it almost touched my shoulder, but I just kept one hand on the fallen tree and jumped across. The tree saved me. My assistant was nowhere to be seen. He had already reached the camp and he was having his lunch. I'm just joking, but he had run away. So the whole point was that made me realize, of course, then we had to take a detour and it was a waiting game and the elephant had time on its hand. We had to finish our line in 2 hours, but the elephant had 20 days to stand there and stalk us down. So these are the experiences. Then, of course, my first ever walk in the forest was, I walked in and I just walked into a leopard. So there was an encounter between a leopard and me at 3 feet distance. At 3 feet, a leopard could have done anything and everything to me, but it chose not to, because we were the guests in its house. And it was just surprised to see who is this coming into my home, rather than trying to attack us. So it's a very illogical myth, thinking that wild animals would simply attack you. But yes, there is a zone, a safe zone, which if you don't cross and don't antagonize and you walk back and you understand their signs, it is definitely much more safe than the road in front of your house. So these are some of the experiences, but there are more which can go over a campfire for a whole night, all involving ticks, and while giving presentations in Oracle, how the itch to scratch was so high. So anyway, all that we'll keep it for another day.
Very interesting. Thanks.
Anyone else has any question? Please raise your hands or you can ask.
So, Ashwin, have you documented all these things in a book or on a film or something where we can go through it?
No, sir. Actually, I have not. But frankly speaking, I do realize that the experiences are unique, and maybe with the intent of actually putting out our efforts and interest to people who might take up the mantle of conservation. Maybe at some point I will write a book and I will document these fascinating experiences so that it can inspire more people to join the cause.
Yeah. Sanjay, I don't see anyone has got any question. Should we move
Okay, just one last thing from my end. How can we as a fellowship group involve in your activities, Ashwin? If you can briefly tell us what way can we?
So it's a wonderful question, Sanjay, and I have so many answers to that. Mainly, we have about 141 watchers who are protecting the forest day in and day out. Okay, so right now we want periodic health camps. 6 months once, we want health camps for our watchers to make sure that they are taken care of. Okay, and through the Rotary, if we can give them a good pair of shoe, a good pair of jacket, all these things, it would add tremendous value to Vanodaya's commitment towards the forest through the Rotary Club. Okay, that is one thing. And whenever there are volunteering opportunities, I would invite all Rotarians to come and be a part of it, to understand the difficulties that both the lower staff of the forest and the volunteers face. That would be very meaningful. And of course, while we have been a self-funded group for 17 years now, without taking any money from anybody, except between 2017 and 2019, when Sanctuary Nature Foundation gave us 12,500 rupees per month, as a funding for 2 years they gave. And all of you pretty much know that one trip to Kaveri will be at least 5 times that. So despite that, it brought in the discipline for us to address how when somebody funds us. So today we are not able to fund, we are still able to fund quite a lot of activities. But when the tolerance program goes from 2 villages to 100 villages, when the Eco Club goes from 2 schools to 100 schools, we might look at large funding to facilitate all this. If somebody here has experience of raising funds through CSR or anything, you can help us, because we are a 100% audited firm with Section 12A and 80G all present. And we are looking at expanding our operations through employee-based model from a volunteer-based model. Because right now the presence on the ground has become 24/7. And as volunteers, we cannot commit to do that. But the work has to go on. So these are all the aspects that you can help somebody.
Yes, insofar as funding is concerned, there is a small, drawback, because Rotary International says fellowship groups have to support Rotary projects alone. So probably some of these things can be taken up as Rotary projects, and if clubs are willing to, sponsor some of the things directly with the, of course, help of Vanodaya. Probably we can we can do, we can look at it as an activity.
Sanjay,
So, yeah.
100% for us, the name does not matter. We are very proud, in fact, to be part of collaborating with the Rotarians, because there is a genuine intention to help people. Okay, all that matters to us is that much. And directly, whatever we ask you to procure can be handed over in a nice ceremony right inside the forest to our watchers and guards, so that it brings a great amount of goodwill to volunteers who are going there on a daily basis. So we'll be very happy to collaborate. We can take some small baby steps and test how these things go together.
Yes.
Yeah, Ashwin, how many schools are you working with there, the eco clubs?
So right now we are working with 2 schools on a long-term basis. This is a 6-month program with highly curated and developed content pertinent to Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary. But these 2 schools, right now we are planning of expanding to another 2 schools, and eventually it should be 10 schools by the end of this year.
Okay, and these are higher secondary schools.
Correct. We only target children between 7th standard and 10th standard because they have an mind that can be slightly influenced towards conservation. And of course, as part of the fire awareness program, we also cover the lower primary schools. But right now we are focusing exclusively on 7th and 10th standard.
Okay, got it. Yeah, probably my club would happy to we have been focusing on enhancing the scientific mindset for the students by sharing some posters. Probably, I'll be more than happy to do that.
I'll connect with you, Geetan.
Yeah. Yes, Sanjay, I think no one is asking any other question. Probably, yeah, you can take it forward now.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ashwin. Now I request our Secretary, Rotarian Janki Ram, to please render vote of thanks.
Yeah. Good evening, all. Hi, everybody. So this was an amazing session by Mr. Ashwin. So he shared a lot of insights about conservation and also the experiences he had in the forest. It was, quite surprising to know so many difficulties he's gone through and kind of dedication he has shown towards conservation. That's really amazing and inspiring. So with this session, I think at least a few of us can join hands with Manodya. It will be a great step. And I'm sure, as Rotarian Sanjay said, we will get involved in some of the activities through whatever way it's possible. And thanks, Mr. Ashwin, for this amazing session. And thanks all for attending this very interesting session. I think you must have got a lot of information and knowledge about conservation and where do we stand in at least in Karnataka towards conservation. Thanks all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the kind words.
Ashwin, sorry, one sudden question cropped up on my mind. One way of raising funds is, how about starting a ecotourism camp under Manodya?
So we already have ecotourism camps, and actually tourism has become a very big pressure on Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary at the moment. Mm-hmm. So what was not a threat, it was just a social threat before, has now bloomed into a full-fledged threat to the ecosystem itself. So we have to very carefully understand what is it that we can do and try and take it forward. But at this point in time, ecotourism might not be an option because it is not a tiger reserve and not even 5% of the forest is open for tourism. So once it becomes a tiger reserve, and as per the NTCA guidelines, if it can be opened up 5%, then yes, that might actually work. And the other thing is, Geetanjali, frankly, if people come expecting to see animals in Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary, they might actually return disappointed because this is a forest which is 1.5 times the size of Bandipur with 25% of the population. So you might see a few cheetal or a wild pig, but if you're looking at some iconic species, you might or might not see it. So whether the success rate of ecotourism is going to be high or low is still to be debated. So it's a tricky question.
I disagree with that. I am in the profession of wildlife tourism for the last 22 years.
Amazing.
We have that is the change we need to bring in as tourism stakeholders, is that tiger is not the only thing that you
Correct.
can see in the forest. And you have shown us so many beautiful small mammals, so yeah, and of course birds.
Lovely.
Yeah.
In fact, Karthikeyan also told that we have the highest biodiversity of any forest in the state.
Right.
I'm very proud to have that, and I'll touch base with you offline.
Sure.
Thank you.
By the way, our wildlifers trip to Gopinatham, which forms a part of Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary, was a very fruitful trip, and we had an amazing, stay. And I saw many birds which I had not seen earlier. So it's a great opportunity to visit Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary.
Maybe even conducting workshops, like specific species workshops, that is also one way of from
very
our
open to
fellowship
that.
we can do that along with Manodaya probably.
We are very open to that.
Yeah. Sure. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks again for
Thank you.
joining.
Thank you so much, Ashwin.
Thank you.
We have all friends from all over the country, as well as we have a friend from Madagascar also who has logged in right from the beginning. Thanks, Hango, for being with us. Thank you all. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.